Hey, Marc, I just won the lottery.
Oh boy, what are you gonna do with it, Jacob?
I don't know, but that's why we're here on our finance and money podcast for New Polity.
Buddy, we got to get a title.
I don't know. What are we going to call this?
Financing with the Fools.
Where we come to you with our wealth of knowledge.
Crypto cash.
Crypto cash?
I don't know what that means. It just sounds good. Can you explain to me Bitcoin in 5 words?
Fake money, imaginary idea, stateless.
There we go. We have our podcast. We'll see you next time. New Polity, baby. All right. So last time we were talking about the virtue of magnificence.
Yep.
And what we're doing here is just plowing through the virtues and showing how the Christian society, needs holiness, right, in order to have a just economy. You can't devise it mechanically. You have to have people being holy, right? And then when people are holy, they will create the Christian alternative to mechanism, right? Which is the honor and shame that comes with being a part of that society, right? Like you want to give, not because you're motivated by the profit motive or taxes or whatever.
Or you're a commie and waiting for the state to handle everything.
Big,
Don't be a commie.
Big daddy
Stop
state here to just cup your butt and tell you to. Anyways, the point is that you have a genuine desire to merit in heaven, and you are ashamed before your neighbor not to do so. I mean, this is the alternative to mechanism, right? We talk about because there's something real.
We got a real problem today with that too. Oh, so in the last year, billionaires in the U.S. increased their wealth by 36%.
Wait, you're telling me that?
I'm telling you.
During a dang old pandemic.
Yeah, when 30 million people were out of a job at one point.
That the
billionaires.
The big boys got bigger?
They got
Are you kidding me? That doesn't sound like this country. That sounds like nope, that sounds like this country. Okay, so the big boys got bigger. Well, that's, you know what? I have to say I'm one of those who benefited because I got $1,200 from the government.
Didn't you get $2,400? Didn't your wife get?
She did.
Oh, yeah, so you guys got more. $2,400.
And we would have gotten $500 for having a child, but he doesn't have a social security card yet, so.
What?
Our bad.
He doesn't exist then, actually. If the state doesn't know him, if he's not in the registry, and he's not real.
This is highly irresponsible. I should not have admitted it. Okay, so yeah, we have a crisis in which apparently when everyone gets sick and jobless, this is good for the rich people.
Yeah, because they have mechanisms by which they get money that don't include people needing to leave their houses anymore. It's genius.
Right, because we're just buying stuff?
Yeah.
Well, and aren't they also getting direct bailouts like from the PPP loan and such?
Well, we're getting direct bailouts, and then everybody goes and spends them on corporation, like in job, everybody got their money and then they spent their money at companies that are actually corporations that are owned by these billionaires.
Right. Okay. Gotcha.
And so meanwhile,
well, because all the little ones were shut down. Yeah.
All of them were shut down. They also, the loan, when we printed that $2.5 trillion, the smallest percentage of that went to small businesses. They ran out of money within the first week. And then tens of thousands of small businesses closed. So those guys who are actually having some freedom. Anyways, we're getting off on a
but tangent. Can I say this before you go on to the right point? Is like, what the hell is so great about being a big company if you need so much? You're just like a giant beggar for the state, apparently.
Well, that's true, but they've also been able to beg the state really well. I mean, this is part of the problem with like classical capitalism, and it's totally like an issue with von Mises, who, even amongst his brilliance in certain respects, like does not consider the profit motive actually going down the avenue of what we consider to be politics today. Sure. It's like, of course, like if somebody's greedy and wants to get more money, then they're going to go and use the state to help them do that.
Oh yeah.
Anyways, he never really
most capitalists that. Like just think of the state as another player.
Oh, totally.
It's not like it has any kind of sacred aura.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. But we're talking about billionaires. And they have a really big problem.
Poor guys.
They just increased their wealth by more than a third.
So sorry.
It's a huge issue. And the reports just came out that for the Forbes 400 wealthiest people in the world, that 35% of them gave less than 1% of their wealth away this year.
Boys.
They are confused. They need our help. They need to know what to give their money to. And we are here for you.
Heck yeah.
So we're going to play the game. What do you do with $1 billion? All right. You ready for this?
Yeah. Let's go.
Jeff Bezos, this one's for you, boy.
Oh yeah, because a lot of people have actually complained. Like, this isn't just like theoretical. Like,
yeah.
Like Jeff Bezos has
he's tweeted out, I need help giving away my money. Do you guys have any ideas?
Yeah. Totally. And you said that 35% give less than 1% of their wealth, and the stats don't really get that much better going up, right?
Oh no, no, the majority give 5% or less. Yeah. And even like the average sits around 4%.
Right. Which, like, if you're a Christian who tithes, that means that you are already giving more percentage wise of your money away than
billionaires,
those who can really afford to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's tough. Okay,
it is tough. It's tough. And there's a few different things in there. Like, much of their money, like, nobody really holds fiat currency, like US dollars and bills. Like, nobody does that because it's not a good store of value for them. And their idea is to store their value. So to be able to actually have all this money in a liquid form so that they could give it away more freely means that they're going to have to sell a lot of things and yada, yada, yada. But it also means that they're probably going to have to distribute their companies a little bit better and give ownership to their employees more than they do right now. Anyways, all to say is that we need to give you a mechanism by which to, like, axioms of how they give your money away. Yeah. So the first one is tithe.
Yeah.
You just got $1 billion. Awesome. $100 million right to the church. Boom. Done. That's it. Blank check.
We're solving your
Doesn't
problems.
necessarily have to be a blank check. You can give it for certain things, like use this to pay the utilities for the next 100 years.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, the church needs your money. So
that's a big start. After that, then you have to say, what are the things in society or throughout history that have changed society so that it loves Jesus Christ more? Like, what actually makes room in a society and thus in people's hearts for the kingdom of God to enter into their souls and then into the community?
Mass production of Chinese goods.
You nailed it. So send your
I know this.
Workers.
I know this because holy cards are often made in China.
You're right. Wow. Wow.
Oh yeah, let's get black pilled here. Church candles.
Church candles. Yeah. China.
Okay, so what can you actually do?
Don't do those things.
Don't do this. What can a society do?
Well, actually, so the thing that I was thinking of is like when the knights all got really guilty, felt really guilty in the late antique period about how evil they were, and like how they just amassed all this bounty and all this stuff, and then they ended up founding monasteries.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think that really ultimately changed the course of history, and it set up Europe to becoming Christendom. Europe would not have become Christendom if it was not for the guilty knights founding monasteries with their bloody money.
Yeah, which is and it's a great like circle in the sense of the knights who have the money. It's through the preaching of the clergy that they are inspired to give it.
Yeah. That's right.
That they need to. They need to do atonement for their sins, and it's the clergy that benefit as well, or the religious rather that.
Right. Well, in many of these cases, it would be different religious. So you hear the preaching from one, and then that goes to the ear of the knight. They create more monasteries. So there's two things that are worth considering here for a second. First is like this cycle from contemplative life to the active life. And I don't mean to get too nerdy, promise not to, but it really is like what enables society to become better is hearing preaching from the sacred word so that you know the direction that we're all supposed to be tending, receiving this blessed sacrament so that you have the capacity and the grace to be able to achieve that end, then going off and doing it, and then enabling and orienting your active life to go back to that prayer, preaching, sacramental life as well. So there's this dance between the contemplative life to the active life, back to the contemplative life, that really, if you have that, then you're going to have a healthy society.
Yeah, and it's important to realize, like, though there's an active contemplative distinction, because we are not individuals, but we're families and communities.
Yeah.
As families, we can have both the active and contemplative.
Totally.
So it's not simply the case that, like, some people live the active life and some people live the contemplative life. It's like, no, it's very clear that everything is supposed to be orientated towards the preservation of the contemplative life.
Yes.
It just means that you're part of a family having that contemplation isn't necessarily the act of contemplation itself. It might be making the conditions possible for, like, to make the possible conditions of contemplation, right? So, like, when you are an active member in the world and your vocation is very much to politics and to, like, on the ground trading or whatever it is, and you're producing profit, you're producing money, you're producing wealth, you're founding a monastery, you're creating a space for religious contemplation, is the way in which society contemplates.
And you benefit from it. You gain their prayers. And of course, everybody should have a contemplative life themselves,
Right,
of prayer and stuff. But the dominant mode of your life is not that, if you're a layman. Yeah.
It's just not, because your kid will scratch your face.
But this is also same. Yeah, right.
Can we rip on monks again, or did we already do that? I was ripping on monks the other day. It was great. Like, they're really proud for, like, getting up in the middle of the night to pray.
Oh, dude.
And recently I've realized that
we do that more.
We do that a lot. Not necessarily to pray. Sometimes we pray that we will be able to go back to bed. However,
yeah, my head hurts this morning.
Check your monk privilege.
Yeah.
Okay, we're done ripping on monks.
But anyways, this really does come back to St. Paul's analogy of the body. Like, we have the head, we have the hands. There's a different parts. Okay. But we need to wealthy people need to be able to reform the actual, like, layout of a society so that we have that cyclical system of contemplative active, and all moving in unison with one another. Yeah. So found monasteries. Yeah. That's the first thing. And that's gonna take a lot of money.
Yeah, absolutely. And it won't happen without, I mean, this is all, we do this in concert, right? We're all part of the same family. So it won't happen without the desire for people to join the monasteries.
Yeah, exactly. But you can do that. You can find that. God always calls. Like, even when Elijah the prophet thought he was alone, he's like, dude, I have 7,000 others. What are you talking about?
Well, and what's really fascinating is, if we live in the age of the greatest accumulation of wealth that humanity has ever seen, and simultaneously the age of the least magnificence that anyone has ever seen.
Yeah, that's right.
And you can look at this in terms of our churches. Like, we build cheap, ugly churches, even though we have more accumulated wealth, right, than ever before. And it seems to me that these things are totally interrelated. Like, if there is a vocations crisis, if there is a crisis in the religious life where we're not having more vocations, surely in part it is because the very wealth by which we show forth the beauty of contemplation in the architecture of the monastery, of the church, is being culled. It's being held back.
Yes.
And when we do use it, we use it to create ugly things. Why would you want to join a monastery that isn't beautiful?
Oh, dude, because you literally have to spend the rest of your life there.
I know.
You're not going to do that. So, give away, you start monasteries.
So, tithe first, 10% gone. Boom.
$100 million gone.
Yeah.
Create a very, very beautiful monastery. It's going to be about 200 million. For the land, for the actual construction. Because you have to build quarters for them. You're going to have to build what will hopefully become like a basilica. Sure. At least something super beautiful.
Yeah, you're going to need land for farming.
Yeah, because also this is a good point, is that the monks actually have to have an active life too.
Sure.
And this was the thing. It's like, we think about St. Thomas, like the great thinker through the Middle Ages. Like, he was a busboy, everybody had a certain productive job that they had to do.
Yeah.
And so
I'm trying not to get, I'm enthusiastic too, but man, the monasteries have to reform to be worthy of this stuff.
No, it's true.
You can't be like just these stupid liberal academics, like getting your endowment from like 1910 and just like eating off the fat of the land. I mean, like, gosh, man, like, if you don't have a love of poverty, right, and a work, like, and the monastery is just this safe space for you to like.
But you can't play kind of a game of chicken and say like,
Sure.
if you get better, then I'll
You're
give.
right. You're right.
stuff
No,
like that.
you're right.
Silly-
I was being depressing and boring.
Yeah.
You're right. Build the beautiful stuff, and as the Bible says, they will come.
I love that Bible.
Oh, that Bible. Page 30, I believe.
Yeah, it's page 30 in mine as well, actually. It might not be in yours. They have different editions. What else after monasteries?
Well, I think that when you are giving away your wealth, you got to recognize that a lot of it is an act of justice, right? And what we described, I think, mostly falls under justice in the sense of like it's what's due to your society. And thinking about that, I think a lot of money could just be spent in the direct reform of companies, especially your own, to change them from profit accruing companies to profit sharing companies. So this is the hardest, I think.
Yeah, and this is going to drop your wealth fastest.
Yeah,
Mhm.
because the way that we accumulate wealth is through scraping off profits. So, I mean, this is old school stuff. Doesn't take a lot of brain cells to realize that if you have a company that employs 300 people, all of whom are making $11 an hour, say, but they're producing a profit, which is more than all of that collective wage.
Marc the magician with numbers.
What's more than 11? Then that profit is being produced by, yes, your capital, your investment, and the work of everyone who is producing the profits.
Mhm.
And so within a just Christian economy, that profit that's produced is shared equitably between yourself and everyone else. There is no justification for not sharing profits besides not having profits.
Yeah, that's
And
right.
I'm afraid this is how it goes. Like, this is just,
Everybody contributes to the success of the company,
Yeah.
and therefore everybody. And then the blood is like it's a body. It's it's a corporation. It's a body, corpus. And the blood has to flow through all of it. I mean, you could not have the success of the company without everybody there.
and
Of course, some people are much more important than others,
absolutely. And some people work much
And so
harder
they-
and
and so they
longer
should
and-
get paid more in their salary.
Yes. But do not make
Yeah.
the perennial mistake of assuming that your having more money to invest in the first place equals you being much more important. It does in certain respects. The thing could not happen without you. Absolutely agree.
Mhm.
But the idea, and there's a real risk, right? There can be a real risk. Sometimes it's not a real risk, but there can be a real risk, right? In putting your money into this particular venture. But to say, okay, and therefore I should get most of the profits,
Yeah.
it's unlikely. Maybe if your company has like 3 people and you're one of them, then that might make sense. But that's not usually what we're dealing with.
No,
here
it's
right now.
not. And so usually people track their wealth in terms of what they own. And so like your company's worth $400 million and you're now giving away all but $50 million of it or something like that. So all of a sudden we're down.
Yeah, you're super down.
We're super down.
We
We
are-
only have $200 million left.
This isn't
250
hard.
million left.
Honestly, Jeff Bezos, just make Amazon a employee-owned company.
Yeah.
Honestly, I know that you're struggling to find ways to give this away. So just do it, man. You can do it. It's easy. And then you won't have as big of a problem. I mean, you'll still have a problem. The monasteries will still have to be founded, but
Yeah. There's a lot there.
gosh, man, I feel like we're
We're really getting somewhere.
Jeff. You can do it, man. No,
One other thing
Yeah.
we should note, and this is maybe they'll feel a little bit better about this. You should buy a beautiful home.
Oh yeah.
You really need a beautiful home. And now there's a number of reasons why you need a beautiful home. And it's one, so that people are directed to you for money.
Yeah, like
That's actually real.
It's so true. It's like if you live in a gated community in just this stupid McMansion, people don't even know that you live there.
How are they going to wassle?
They can't
to you?
wassle.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. I lived in a small. It wasn't gated. It was like a suburban community in Virginia, and it took me forever to realize that it was illegal to beg there. So,
Oh, yeah,
and we do this
that
most of the
happens.
time. Like
Yeah.
we create communities in which it's illegal for the poor to show up and ask for money.
Yep.
And then we do things like, oh, how can I give away my money? Like, what needs are there in the world? It's like, maybe don't live in a community such where needs are invisible.
Yeah, absolutely. And so and needs are depersonal. I mean, that's a huge problem. Is that
Impersonal, I think it would be the word.
did I say depersonal?
Depersonal.
Yeah. Well, depersonalize. I don't know. My English is good. Well, that's a big problem because people say, this guy needs money. I don't know him from Adam. Like, what is he going to do with it?
Sure. Yeah. Right.
My godfather had this hilarious story. He asked C.S. Lewis. They were walking out of a pub one day, and C.S. Lewis gave some beggar some money, and Walter goes, "But aren't you afraid that he's going to spend it on drink?" And Lewis goes, "Well, if I kept it, that's what I would do with it." It's an awesome line, but there's another reason to have a big house is that you can have a lot of people in it.
Yeah.
As well, and that's really important. Is that if you have a big house, then you need to be using it all the time as well. Because if you don't use something, then you don't really own it. That's the Catholic principle.
Yeah.
So, use defines ownership. So if you have an extra room, then you're actually sinning in terms of injustice.
Yep.
That you have something that can be used by somebody in need.
Right. Or to put it more, because that's a little drastic. You could also say you're not sinning insofar as it's not used, but what you are doing is you have an obligation, given that you're not using it, to use it when asked.
That's a better way to say it.
Well, just in the sense of like sometimes your guest room's empty, but like, but what you think about the early Christian practice of setting a place at the table for the poor, or for Jesus, like if he should visit, for Elijah, or Chrysostom says it's like a fitting and sweet practice to have a bedroom, I think with like a candle lit in it. I forget how it goes, but like basically like to have a place ready for Christ if he should come to your door, and that's Christ in the neighbor, right? So it's not simply, like it might be an obligation for you if you really have an accumulation of disuse to go out and bring people to your home.
Yeah.
But it could also just be like an actual disposition where you're ready to take in someone that needs it.
That's right. Yeah.
And I've always found the best way to avoid that awkward scenario of not knowing if it's good to give or if it's good to give money out is to already have given it, because then you don't have it to give and then you avoid the awkward scenario. It's so easy. Okay, so we've got a lot here. This is really good. You're tithing, you're founding a monastery, you're turning your company into an employee-owned company and starting to share profits, and you're making a beautiful house, which I think is also really crucial to point out that like you are the person that can afford to create
beautiful things. And preserve beautiful things.
We live in a weird aesthetic era of minimalism. Now, minimalism is a bad joke played on humanity by Satan. And the way it works is this. What you tell people that what looks beautiful, right, is what looks impoverished, right? And then, having made this claim, you allow the people that have lots of money, right, to create things that they think are beautiful that look, for all the world, like what everyone else has, right?
Take, for example, St. Anthony's College, Oxford. Just Google it. You're going to see a big silver blob. They think that's beautiful.
The point is, when wealth is spent on things that don't look beautiful, that are very like corporate, industrial, a lot of glass, a lot of metal, things that don't last, things that you would expect of an impoverished culture, then it's a twofold benefit to the wealthy. It allows them to actually not spend a lot of money, right? But at the same time appeal like they're doing those great or seem like they're doing those great public works. It's like, look, I have put up this big block of concrete, so I'm doing my job. It's like, no, like you should do the things that you're truly capable of, which is, building things with a true beauty, with an intricacy, with a detail that goes down to the very smallest detail of your house or of the building that you're building. And that's something that I think requires an aesthetic conversion to an aesthetic of maximalism. So instead of thinking, okay, how do I make things that are cool, or how do I make things that look hip and modern, or how do I not even modern. Like modern's fine. It's just like how do I like the question seems to be how do I make things that don't appear to involve great wealth, but seem to somehow be just big. I don't know. Instead, right, of building boxes, like build things that really appear wealthy, things that when people walk past, they couldn't deny that this is the fruit of a great expense, a great work. Um, and that should be your home for sure. That should be the church for sure. Um, I'm not advocating for a kind of like frilly, we're not doing an aesthetic conversation. I'm not advocating for frilliness, but um, you got to build like you're wealthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you
and preserve like you're wealthy. I think
but
that's
it's
an
tough.
important,
It's so
important
tough
thing
because
too.
the rich are cursed in this country to not know what beauty is.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird that you have like the greatest ugliness being produced by the people who have the greatest capacity to create beauty.
Yeah.
And where you see real beauty is actually in lower classes of people that can't usually afford to really do it. So you see this on the level of craftsmen who have a real love for a particular detail. Like they can really build gorgeous countertops, say, right? And they don't have the resources with which to take that smaller attention to detail or that love of creation and expand it to an entire building, an entire home, a library, whatever it is.
Yeah.
That's your job. So yes, all I wish to say is build a beautiful house.
Yep.
Do what only you can do.
Yep. Absolutely. Well, we're getting close. We still have around $200 million to go.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. What else do you got?
Oh,
I mean, there's something like today. I mean, we
Yeah.
mentioned this last time, but I think one of the major issues today is that we're not raising people to have true skills, as you said, as you're kind of hinting at there. People got to have real skills. People got to think really well, and we can't continue to have a broken university system the way that we do today. I mean, there's not one university that I would want to send my kids to.
Yeah.
So, I would say
Great trade schools.
create St. Joseph the Worker College, something like that. Where you're able to completely rethink through a system.
Yeah.
And something that we're doing generally with New Polity is to go back to the medieval Christendom to say, all right, this was a whole society that was thinking about Christ, that was trying to reform their lives to Christ. They did it for centuries, so they must have gotten a little bit further than we have. So let's go back and see what they did. So one of the things that we found was that their university systems rocked socks. I mean, they had this beautiful kind of dance that every university student would have, where they would go from the field to the library to the chapel. And then this was cultivating their fullest humanity. And so something like the trade school came to our mind, where you were moving from the workshop to the chapel to the library. So look back at Christendom for other ideas. I mean, what else did they have? They had cool stuff.
They had plays.
They had plays.
Yeah.
I love this.
One of the biggest things that the wealthy are looked for is to have parties. And you see this in the kind of decadent Great Gatsby stuff, where those parties become self-enclosed enjoyments of wealth itself. And then everyone is like pale and gloomy, and like the dresses are kind of boring. And people think like that they're deep because they say things like, I never was fulfilled. That's lame. Those parties suck. So don't do that. Apparently that's what actually gets done. Like during COVID, there were a lot of like scandalous stories of the rich disobeying the social distancing laws to have big parties. It's like,
well, they tested beforehand. They had immediate tests, and then they would fly their chopper to the next place, and then they would do immediate like COVID tests. And I'm doing this because they had to stick the little thing up their nose.
Well, at least there's that.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, you're telling me the wealthy had access to technologies that other people don't have during a time of crisis?
It's generally true.
That doesn't sound like our country.
Oh wait, yes it does.
So parties.
Because something important here is liturgical time. It's like actually becoming aware of liturgical time, which is not this binging and barfing that we do in our current society, but actually of fasting and feasting.
Yeah.
And that feasting is real, and it's not particular to just certain people, but the entire city.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk really quick about the passion plays, or not even the passion plays, the mystery cycles of medieval England, where basically, usually around the Feast of Corpus Christi, a great expense was made to put on the mysteries, the stories of of salvation history. So from the Old Testament into the New. And there's some really brilliant ones. The one that we're probably most familiar with are the Passion plays, which is of the death or the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, and which happens still in Oberammergau in Austria. Now, these plays, which were cyclical, which would happen every year, they inspired some of what St. Paul talked about when he talks about let there be a holy competition among you, because each one of the mysteries was the responsibility of a particular guild. So a particular unit of workers. So you would have like the leather workers would sponsor, like the Annunciation play, and the shipbuilders would were responsible for the Great Flood, obviously. But each guild would have this as their public work, so their liturgia, right? The thing that they were proud of. And when they would do them, there was great competition between all the guilds in the sense that everyone wanted to put on the best play. They wanted it to be glorious. They wanted it to be known that the Tanners this year just rocked it, right? And there's like real like competition, even with the skill of the actors, with the lavishness of the sets, the designs, and of just the event itself. We don't really have something like that. So like most of our society, we take the arts and we kind of put them in a compartment, and then we try to get the rich to give to them, and we try to get grants from the government and all this stuff. And then we put on plays for the slightly rich to be able to go see.
Right, exactly.
And they're all, the plays are, our theater is in a core, it's still a mystery cycle. It's just that it's the mysteries of liberalism. So when you go to see a play, it's always a play about how someone recognizes their individual power over and against their community and then rises up and sings a song about it. So that's our mystery, our liturgical cycle. Now, what I think is that principle could really help, that medieval principle could really help the wealthy get rid of their money. If there is, I mean this literally, like I think you should literally have mystery cycles. Like you should literally have plays.
The scripts are out there.
Yeah. We have
Go find the actors.
Or we can write our own scripts. It doesn't have to be like
I'm just trying to make it easy for them.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Well, but then they have to figure out the Middle English on some of those. That might be hard.
Are they not translated? They're translated.
Some are transliterated, some aren't. So it's like, It depends on how many you want to do. But make a great expense. It's sort of like the firework principle of magnificence. Like find reasons to blow up your money in a spectacular way. And let this be cyclical, healing to a society, that it happens with regularity. So you can assure to yourself and to the society as a whole that it will never accumulate in a way that isn't for others, in a way that denies the universal destination of goods. Now, plays might be the way to do this. And what's really great is once you have this Christian principle where it's like, I want to explode my money for others, and that's like in your heart, right? Then those motivations that we might otherwise condemn, right? Where we might say like, basically those motivations of competition, of entrepreneurship, those find their kind of their redemption, right? Because you can have that desire to have the biggest firework, the most spectacular show, and that because it's for others, it really does become a kind of holy competition where you don't look with like bitterness and envy if someone does less or more than you, right? But because you're all competing for the sake of the good, the common good.
Yeah.
You want it to be for everyone so you can recognize how it's all a gift, even as you want the biggest gift. You want to give the biggest gift. So yeah, I think public works like building theaters and supporting theater troops who have genuinely liturgical functions of healing society through great spectacle. I think that's crucial. And I think that the wealthy should do it. In fact, I think it's only the wealthy that can do it. Here in our town, we have and we demolished 2 of our 3 theaters for the sake of parking lots for other. It hurts, but for other businesses.
Those businesses are closed and the parking lots are empty.
Yeah, but there's one left, the Grand Theater in Steubenville, that a gentleman here has been tirelessly trying to restore to its former beauty, which is a real. I mean, it's like Rococo plaster work. It's like it's a
the back wall literally split the bricks.
You
can see straight through it. So there's a lot.
Sew that up. So it's literally something like to have a thriving theater and a troupe and the ability to have a place of communal entertainment by and from the people, and not just simply us giving money to corporations in California. This requires great wealth.
Yeah.
Right. And I hope we get it. But this is my point. That's another thing you can do, is to look for grand festival that you alone can really make majestic, magnificent even. And then do it. Yep. And that should get rid of a lot of money too.
That should do it. Yeah. So I think you've gotten the idea. I mean, you can also buy up billboards and put sacred art on there instead of just gimmicky marketing.
That's my job.
Or just, Mark School and
That's the first thing I'm doing when I'm wealthy, guys.
Or just tear them down. Just buy them and tear them down.
It's harder.
Yeah.
It's harder. It's actually...
Is it?
Well, it's just
they're
that
protected.
People own them.
Well, you can buy them. That's what I'm saying. Once you buy them from them.
You can buy the land that's on it and then take it down.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. So these could be things if you're really struggling. And that would be, again, there's something... When people think about giving away their money, they often think about material needs.
Yeah.
And they're not thinking about spiritual needs. And we're never going to fix the material needs if we don't have the spiritual needs fixed, because we have created. I mean, Marx was right when he's talking about capitalism, that the wizard cast a spell and then the wizard no longer controls it. We are stuck in this rut, but the system really is just everybody having the same disposition of soul.
Yeah.
Towards depersonalizing society. There we go. I got it right. Okay. Towards a systems approach, towards a constitutional approach, towards individualism. And the only way that system is going to be broken is once people's dispositions are changed. So there's a spiritual change that includes beauty in our exposure to it.
Well, and it has to recognize that you are going to face Jesus Christ, and he's going to ask what you did with your money. I mean,
right.
It's weird that this is one of the few times where Jesus is very clear. Like, the use of money is his number one image of the use of capacity generally.
Yes, that's right.
So it's always within the form of giving that talent, right?
Yep.
That's his parable. And somehow we all, spiritually as Catholics, have agreed with what the image represents. So we say things like, you have to give your talents to God. You're going to render an account for what you've done with all the things that have been given to you. But we exclude the meta image, the phenomenon, like the thing itself that Jesus uses somehow goes by the wayside.
It counts for my soul, but not for my wallet.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, wait, but he was talking about your wallet. Yeah.
Literally. Yeah. Like and this is just this is like a literary problem. Like, good metaphor is grounded in like the historic sense. So like, because it's true of money, it can become a good metaphor for other things, but it has to be true of money in the first place.
Absolutely.
It's not like, oh, well, he just meant it really for other things, so it's not true of money. It's like, that's precisely what would make it a terrible metaphor. Yeah. Like, you can only say all flesh is grass if there's an actual relationship between the two. And the same thing, you can only say that money equals talent if it's a real example of capacity that's got to be used for God.
That's right.
So I think with what you're saying, you're only going to break a systems approach to money where you presume that it's going to be doled out by lawyers or markets or taxes or whatever, by recognizing that you're going to face Jesus for what you did with every dollar that you ever had.
Exactly.
And you will be condemned, right? If you used it for injustice, or if you omitted to use it for justice, you will be condemned by the just judge. And you will be praised and welcomed, into the arms of Christ if you if you used it for the poor, right? Because that's what he says. He says, I mean, gosh, this is just like baseline stuff, but I think we forget, like when Christ, the only time he talks about people going to hell, it's because they didn't use their capacities for the sake of those who needed them.
Yep.
I mean, that's what he says. And
So we'll have podcasts on savings accounts and
Yeah.
retirement funds and inheritance.
got to do inheritance, yeah.
Dude, it's huge.
But let's go over our list here.
But
Okay, so
let's
you
do
got $1
this.
billion.
Okay, you got $1 billion.
Sucks. So sorry. We promise it won't happen again. Not after this.
Yeah.
Number 1.
Tithe.
Number 2.
Found monasteries.
Number 3.
Employee-owned companies.
Yeah. Number 4.
Buy a house.
Beautiful
Big
house. Make it beautiful.
House.
Yeah.
Beautiful house. And beautiful art in your house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just crush it. Number 5.
Billboards and drama theaters and cycles and festivals.
Yeah. So the firework approach, right? Burn your money on large public works, which benefit everyone.
And then you've done it.
You've done it.
Then you're one of us. Welcome.
Welcome to the poor.
Now
club.
that burden of metal on your broken back is off. Your soul is uplifted. You're happy.
And furthermore,
in the blessed way.
You've built in yourself a habit.
Yep.
Through pain, through suffering. It's not going to be easy, especially
Yep.
because capitalism habituates you to think that the pious act is to hold on to everything and to never let money go unless it's just a means of making more money.
Mm-hmm.
That is our piety. That's our liturgy. That's our ritual. That's what we do. That's what it means to live within a capitalist religious cult.
Yeah.
So in getting out of it, it's going to create a lot of suffering, a lot of pain, but then that habit will mean that the next time that through your sort of blessing really of entrepreneurship, it's hard to say.
You got it. Close enough.
And through your own resources and abilities and everything God's given you, if you do make another $1 billion, you know what to do.
You'll be habituated
Yeah.
towards the Catholic way of being. And with that, next time.
Goodbye.